I would beware of any overly intellectual approach or overly dogmatic approach when it comes to your question. Traditionally, there have always been monastics. But by monastics, I mean men or women who have chosen to renounce the householder life, to renounce sexual desire, to renounce the profit motive, to renounce many material things. It's symbolized by shaving your head and donning a robe or something like this. So traditionally, this has always been a part of the approach. But traditionally, there's always been a householder tradition as well. If you read the Upanishads tell us all about these different types of enlightened sage, some of whom were married, some of whom had more than one wife, some of whom were female, some of whom were children. So, and there's a tradition of passing this knowledge from father or mother to son or daughter. Now, to have a son or a daughter, you have to have had sex, to put it bluntly. You have to have lived a family life of some kind at some point. So there's always been a tradition of monastics, of renunciates, and a tradition of householders. My personal view is I am very glad. I had this tension was there in me as well. It wasn't so great for me. There was always a part of me that wanted to go off and become a recluse. And I suspect that's there in many of us, genuine spiritual seekers. There's that desire, that urge there. But I personally, I'm very glad I never did that. On a human level, I've learned so much, I've experienced so much through being a householder, through not being a renunciate. And it has not been an obstacle for me at all. Now, there are other people who it will be an obstacle for. So this is why I said we shouldn't take a dogmatic approach. This is why when Ramana was asked, many times he was asked, he was asked this question. Maybe a gentleman came up to him and said, should I leave my wife, my children, or should I not get married? Should I not enter into marriage in the first place? And should I, come here and stay with you in the ashram? And he always said, no, that's householder life. And I've been reading between the lines, and that's the advice I'll give you as well, Tamer. And I think reading between the lines, if your path is to be a renunciate, you don't ask. I think Bhagavan knew that. I could be completely wrong because he didn't say this anywhere. But I think he knew if someone's asking, I'm not sure whether to be a renunciate or a householder, whether to, have a girlfriend or have a wife, that kind of thing or not. By householder, I don't necessarily mean you have to have a household. I just mean non-renunciate, by the way. I know it's a rather archaic term. See, if your calling is to be a renunciate, you don't ask the question. If you're asking the question, you're still attached to the world. So, be in the world. Now, it is true that you do have to transcend and give up everything. Everything, all your desires. Your entire self. Desires all come from the ego self, the false self. And that has to be totally given up. But we shouldn't be too dogmatic about it. What do I mean? We shouldn't be intellectual about it. We don't have to be intellectual about it. It will all happen as it's meant to happen. Much better to surrender to God now. Now, this is what I liked about the way you described Aurobindo's teaching, whether my interpretation of it is accurate or not, because you barely said anything about it at all. But when you listen to your heart, when you listen to God's will, when you be still and surrender, and you discover the divine essence within you, and on the body-mind level, on the phenomenal level, it moves you, it guides you. This is what I heard when you said, with your description. This is the spiritual teaching. This is what I did. I listened to my spiritual heart. I don't know, the intuition, the divine intuition within me, the Holy Spirit within, and it guided me. It told me what to do. Sometimes in words, but more often than not in words, just through intuitive feeling. It told me what to do. And when you get in touch with that, it doesn't matter if you're a householder or a renunciate. It makes zero difference. Makes zero difference. Self-realization never depends on Maya. I'll say it again. Self-realization never depends on Maya. Maya is everything you can perceive. If someone says, oh, you need to find this rock or this crystal, and you need to pray to this rock or this crystal for liberation, well, you're saying that the self and liberation depends on Maya, an object, an appearance. It doesn't. If you say, oh, you've got to be a man or you've got to be a woman for liberation, then you're saying, well, realization depends on the body, an object. It doesn't. If you say, oh, you've got to be very well read in the scriptures, you've got to know Sanskrit, you've got to be very, very clever, got to have a very sharp intellect, you're saying that self-realization depends on something that's a phenomena that's changing, that's coming and going, that's fickle. No. Does that mean you shouldn't learn Sanskrit? Does that mean you shouldn't read books? Well, maybe you should. But if someone here said to me, you know what, Tom, I really have a longing to learn Sanskrit, I feel like that's what I have to do, I'd say that sounds great. But if you came to me and said, you know what, I'm not sure about this, I've read in a book somewhere that you need to learn Sanskrit, but I don't know if that's for me, then I'd say, well, you don't need to learn Sanskrit. You see? A book doesn't know what is right for you. And you can't speak to Sri Aurobindo. That body mind, if we're taking Sri Aurobindo to be the body mind, is no longer with us. So all you have is words on a page or something similar, maybe audio recordings if there are any, I don't know. Something like this. The true teaching is alive. It's a living teaching. The true teacher is within. It's a living teacher, living teaching. Guru Ramana is alive within us, guiding us. In the Christian tradition, it's Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit within, guiding us. Same. So my advice to you is don't worry about these things. Don't worry. You'll move to go to the ashram, visit the samadhi, go to the ashram, visit samadhi. I'm sure you'll benefit greatly from it. Why? Because you're drawn to it. You know it's right for you. So do it. Do you have to jump all the way in, 2 feet into the deep end? No, you don't. Maybe you'll see other people doing that. Let them do it. You see other people shaving their heads, donning the robe, foregoing, marriage or sex or anything like that. Let them do that. Don't let that affect you. You don't need to follow the crowd. You need to follow that spiritual impulse within yourself. That is the beginning and end of the entire teaching. You allow that spiritual impulse to blossom within you. It will expand, and grow and take you over, overwhelm you, take you over until you're no longer there. And all that's left is it. And it's effortless. It's beautiful. It's loving. It's not like, oh, do I need to give up sex? Oh, do I need to forego my worldly life? It's not that. When you let go of these things, it's a delight to let go of these things, because you're letting go and coming into something infinitely more pleasurable, more blissful, more whole, more complete. So it's beautiful. And on the physical level, maybe sex happens, maybe it doesn't happen, maybe marriage happens, maybe it doesn't happen. It's no different to learning Sanskrit. Maybe learning Sanskrit happens, maybe learning Sanskrit doesn't happen. You see? Your actions will naturally become dharmic. Dharmic means, I guess, good or right, or in aligned with the divine. As you surrender to the divine, your ways will become more and more dharmic.